Good morning, guys. This is extremely intimidating. I've only sent out 3 TJL emails in my entire life. So now I have to look at you and actually talk to you. So, good morning. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mark Borges. I've been an employee here for 5 years, 3 of which I've been a teacher, and 1 apiece as a security guard with Coach Hart, and as a permanent in-house substitute.
If you don't read your WC, if you don't read your TJOLs, the WCAC tennis coach of the year.
Thank you, Dr. Robot. It's actually the Washington Post All-Met Coach of the Year. In addition to all those things, I am also a 2006 graduate of Richmond High School. So I'm here today to honor the contribution of both Matt Mahalik and Colin Heater, not only as fellow faculty members, but also as an alum and as a friend. Colin Heater started working here in the spring of 2011 as a business office intern, and then moved on to be the equipment manager, JV, head lacrosse coach, and varsity assistant. His very first act as the equipment room manager was to clean out the equipment room, which was no small feat because it hadn't been cleaned out since Dick Martin was coaching wrestling in there in the 1970s and 80s. Colin is the loudest guy in the room, but he's also the first guy to dive on the floor for a loose ball. That's just the kind of guy Colin is. In pursuit of his goals, he started off as O'Connell working in the business office as an intern, which is where I met him for the very first time, as he wheeled 8 cases of beer into the office for an event later that week. I knew I liked him. He also that year volunteered to be the JV head lacrosse coach. The lacrosse program went through a rough 3 years after Colin started. 3 different head coaches. But every offseason, Colin was the guy that brought the team together and had off-season team workouts when there was no one else to do it. He didn't know if the next coach was going to keep him on or not. He just did it for the team, for the guys. The players in the program started to have an identity because of his tireless work ethic. That's just the kind of guy Colin is. When Boomer needed a bus at the very last minute, Colin would bring the key down to his office, act like he was mad, throw the bus key at Boomer as he grumbled about Boomer never being prepared for anything. Always through a half smile that always turned into booming laughter. Whenever the swim team needed to be picked up or coach needed uniforms, or anyone had a job that Colin could possibly have something to do with, he was called. He would always roll his eyes, smile, and say, "I just can't say no." He would always come through. That is just the kind of guy Colin is. Colin embodied the spirit of O'Connell. He cared for his players, and they knew it. They looked up to him, not only as a coach, but someone they could come to when they needed help. The passion that Colin coached with can be summed up in one story. I was watching one of his JV lacrosse games a couple of years ago. The game was back and forth, but the real show was Colin on the sideline, running up and down with the guys screaming and encouraging, getting on his knees and pleading and getting up and doing it all over again. Talk about passion. They lost that game. But as they walked off the field with his players, Colin went up to every single one of them and told them that he knew they had given it their all. And that's just the kind of guy Colin Heater is. On to the next one. Matt Mahalik coached basketball here for, 5 years, once when he wasn't even a real employee. 5 years as a varsity assistant coach. He worked as a sub, and then now as the academic support teacher and coordinator of the mentor program. The first time I ever met Matt, he was just hired, and we were sitting right there next to the railing in the cafeteria line, and he introduced himself to me. He looked me square in the eyes, and he said, "You see that new English teacher over there? I said, I'm going to marry her one day." And every day for more than half a year, he would take the last 5, 10, or 15 minutes and go talk to that new English teacher. He would always say, "I just got to pay my dues." Talk about driven. He is the son of a successful Division I college basketball coach. He was the star of his high school basketball team, played college basketball, ran college track, and was the editor of his college newspaper. When Matt started at O'Connell as a full-time sub and coach, he was not only working his normal day and basketball practice, but also spent nights and weekends going out to see local basketball talent. It also wasn't uncommon to find Matt strumming a guitar at O'Connell with his friends or by himself in the music department. But he was always working. Matt, I would always ask, why don't you get a job with your dad? It just seems easy, it's family. He would always look at me with that knowing smile and say, you just gotta pay your dues. Several years ago, Matt took on a program that paired freshmen with upperclassmen and a teacher as mentors. These freshmen were also in Matt's class every single day. His job was to teach them how to be successful, not just in school, but in life. Matt became their coach, mentor, and confidant. Many of his students have gone on to have successful high school academic careers, including 3 that were in my honors government class this past year. In addition to his teaching responsibilities this past year, Matt was a volunteer coach for George Mason University men's basketball team. Matt was leaving school and spending his evenings in Fairfax, doing everything an intern at a large company does, with one really nice perk, Matt. He had the ability to live his dream, coaching college basketball. Matt would stop in every once in a while when my wife and I lived in Fairfax, and I would ask him jokingly, Matt, why are you running yourself into the ground like this, man? And he would always reply, I just gotta pay my dues. These are not just stories. These are lessons that are taught one day at a time. All we want is to learn them as fast as possible. But we can't lose sight of the importance of the simple ones. These are the guys that I threw footballs with, hit tennis balls in the parking lot with, relaxed with, went out with, shared coaching experiences with, shared victories, shared defeats, and who could always relate because they were going through the same issues. They were special for this school because they helped to give an identity to programs both academically and athletically that needed one. The lessons that these two lived in their everyday lives were reflected by everyone they came into contact with. When you look back on different periods in your life, there are always people who define that time. Matt and Colin are some of those people. We started on this journey in adulthood, marriage, and careers together, and many of those lessons and memories will forever define how I live. And like one of my favorite coming-of-age stories, A Separate Piece, Phineas defines a portion of his life, Phineas defines a portion of Gene's life while in school that seems carefree. But there are so many lessons taught on those fields. Thank you, Matt and Colin, for everything you have done for this school.